To go back all those years, like 1990, 91, little did I know I'd be 49 years old waiting for Final Fantasy 16. But I still enjoyed the game for what it was. I got to the end. I tried to make it into something. I can just say, oh, I hate this game and I don't want to play it. And then who loses? I do.
Instead of making SNES-inspired stuff, make PS1 or maybe even PS2. Is it too expensive?
When I go to look at my shelves, everything means something. I walk in and I look at my Neo Geo games or my PC Engine games and I get whelmed up and I get so excited because I love that stuff. I look back in some of the earlier things I did on the show, memories that I did in like 15 years ago, and I'm really happy that I did them because some of them have faded a little bit. I would tell everybody to have a YouTube show and record their memories and thoughts, even for their future family members.
Hey, welcome to the Create Unknown, the home of Make Something Mean Something. It is TCU's Day. We are here live on Discord every single Tuesday, and I have a return guest this week. It's just me, no Matt Tabor. He's off again this week so that I can have a little one-on-one time with my good friend, the HappyConsoleGamer, a.k.a. Johnny Millenium. John, welcome back to the Create Unknown.
Thank you for having me. And I was thinking about it before I came on today. I thought, we've known each other for 23 years at this point now. Isn't that pretty wild?
It is really weird. Yeah.
It is really
Older
weird.
Than many of our listeners have been alive.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, me and you used to be on forums back then talking about RPGs and all sorts of things. And then it's weird that we kind of met all these years later on YouTube and then doing the podcast. And it's always a pleasure to come in and talk to you about video games because I think me and you are very similar in what games we like and our childhoods growing up on, the JRPGs that we were into. So we have a lot in common.
Yeah. And not only that, it's not all in common. That's why I like talking to you because there are some games where I'm like, I really didn't like this and you loved it. Or I'm like, I'm really vibing with this game and you're like, it is not for me. So there are some differences within the JRPG obsession. And but here's I just watched your latest video on the RPGs that you're excited for this year. So that's kind of actually where I really wanted to start with you specifically, because for some reason, the past year or so, I've been on a real Final Fantasy kick. Like over the summer, I replayed the original Final Fantasy VII. Then I replayed the Final Fantasy VII remaster and liked it way more the second time, interestingly. Way more the second time. I think the first time I was put off by how different it was. The second time, I was all in. I freaking loved it. And right now I'm replaying Final Fantasy X, but 16 comes out this year. And you had mentioned something in your episode about how there doesn't seem to be a lot of buzz around it. And I wanted to hear kind of more about your thoughts about that.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up because that is something I mentioned in the episode. And I thought, does anybody else understand what I'm saying? And I'm glad that you do. And I guess a lot of other people do as well, that back in the day, Final Fantasy, a brand new release in the series would be the biggest thing ever. You'd be waiting 5 years. The game would come out let's just pick one. Final Fantasy X, which you're replaying. I remember seeing the screenshots and the artwork of, Tidus in the water with the water sword and me and my friends sitting going, oh, it's like water themed and it's kind of futuristic again. And like philosophizing about what it was going to be and talking for many hours about what the potential of this new game was. And then it would come out and it was the biggest thing ever. The music was incredible, the cinematics and all of that. And these things were big events where I feel, where do you think that the hype kind of fell off? For me, it was kind of 13. 12 was a big deal thing, so all the artwork. And then 13 came out. And I just didn't enjoy that game. It felt like a very small ideaed Final Fantasy game where it's more about flash and bang rather than a world to explore. And then never mind 14, that's online. But 15 was the one, again, that really broke the fan base in half, kind of like The Last Jedi did. kind of broke everybody in half for movies. This kind of broke everybody in half for the game. Some people liked it, some people didn't. I jumped on the bandwagon and thought, I better like this because this is Final Fantasy, and I don't have any other option if I want to play Final Fantasy, because that's kind of what it is. And I kind of just went more with the flow where a lot of other people dissected it and hated it. What do you think about all of that?
To me, it fell off. For me, I would say it fell off at 12, actually. 12 was the first one. Man, I think Final Fantasy 12 was the first one I didn't finish. I gave up on. I think I played it for like 30 hours, and I was just like,
that was me. I attempted it twice. I attempted it twice, and I gave up and all that. And then all of a sudden, it just sounds funny. I got about 30 hours in, and then I'm like, oh man, I know this game is good. I need to get into it. And then I played it with a girlfriend of mine. She got all the way near the end, and she didn't finish it. It was just one of those things like, we got to get this done. So when, obviously I met Kim and we got married, and it was years later, I told her the story of Final Fantasy 12. I said, I've tried to do it twice, didn't do it. And I said, I even tried to do it with an ex-girlfriend. We didn't get it. As soon as Kim heard that, she's like, oh, I'm taking it on. I'm going to annihilate this. And so Kim destroyed the game, and I was a backseat pilot sitting on the couch, eating chips or whatever I was doing, watching her play, and I absolutely loved it. And I know why people didn't, and I know why you didn't, and I know why I jumped off. It felt like an MMO. It didn't feel like that charismatic Final Fantasy of the past, but there still is a game of worth there, but I understand why everybody jumped off it at the same time. So it's interesting with 12. I get it. I had the same thing as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I felt just like it was very wandery. And like, if you are really into the wanderiness of it, then it is certainly awesome. But at some point after 30 hours of feeling like I was just wandering around, I was like, I don't really want to wander for another 30 hours, especially coming off of 10, which was really linear. Like, as I'm replaying it right now, that game is super linear. You just go from place to place to place to place to place to place.
That's like Final Fantasy. That's like Final Fantasy. It's like Final Fantasy 13. Remember? Do you know how disturbed I was when I started playing? So I bought Final Fantasy 13. I'm going to do this, talk about this in an episode. And I bought the strategy guide because I would do that back then. And I was like, yes, this is a big event. I'm going to play this. And I remember getting to the first dungeon, and I'm like, I brought my strategy guide out. I didn't need it, but I thought, where am I? Dude, the first dungeon was
a straight line.
Was a straight line, and it had some grooves in it where you could kind of go in and find a couple of items. And I was like, where's the towns? The towns were like kiosks where you buy things out of a kiosk. I was like, this is when it all started to crumble on me a little bit, where all of a sudden Final Fantasy could do no wrong. Final Fantasy was doing some wrong to me. And I was like, oh no. But I still try to enjoy these games, but 13-2, Lightning Returns, I'll always openly admit it. I couldn't do those games. Couldn't do them.
What's so funny is that, recently on your channel, you were talking about how, and one of the reasons I should say that I love about your channel is since you've been there, you've been through it all. Yeah. You talk about what it was like. And it's really fun for me to hear someone talk about what it was like, because there were these moments like Link's new look with Wind Waker, which was such a big deal at the time. Everyone was freaking out. But the Final Fantasy 13 thing was the corridors. Everyone was just talking about the corridors. How it was just like hallway after hallway after hallway. And that was that whole game. Yeah. I still liked it, though.
Did you? Like,
my battle system was fun.
Well, I heard that at one point the battle system gets good, but it's later on in the game. It kind of opens up a little bit more. I think my friend Andrew enjoyed it, but even he said, he's like, yeah, I understand why anybody doesn't like it. It's like, it's not great. And all that. It became like, I made an episode of my show called like The Time Gaming Scared Me. And it wasn't clickbait at all. I really went in and explained why. Is that there was a time in video gaming when you thought it was going to be all about cinematics were taking over. And it was all about the movies rather than the game substance and exploring. And Final Fantasy 13 gave me that feeling. I'm like, they're going back to this again. The flash and the substance. Like when you do a move in Final Fantasy 13, it's the greatest thing you've ever seen. But it doesn't feel fulfilling. It doesn't feel, I didn't connect with any of the characters. Final Fantasy 13 is my most disappointing Final Fantasy game, for sure.
Yeah.
Without question.
Yeah,
But
so I think it's been game after game of people because like when you were talking about people aren't hyped for it, and then I just kept thinking, yeah, well, it seems like everyone that's come out for like 2 decades has had a lot of people that hated it. So I'm not really surprised, at this point that it's not loved the way it was.
What I am mentioning in the episode, and I guess what you resonated with is that before you would be talking to your friends. I mean, I'd jump on a call with you and say, "Oh my God, this game is coming out! Can you believe it?" Like, yes. Like I remember Final Fantasy 3 was Final Fantasy 6. My friend Andrew moved away, and he gave me a call. He's like, "I got the game," and I remember I was on my driveway at my parents' house, and where the basketball hoop was, and I remember I was on a portable phone with a big antenna out of it, because it was like the 90s there.
I remember from Saved by the Bell.
yeah, pretty much. And I remember jumping up and down because I was so excited that he had it. And he said, "John," he goes, "I played it. I'm playing it." He goes, "The opening cinemas, it made me cry." And now the robots walking in the snow, that bit, and the music, and I was, "Oh my God, I can't wait." I thought my friend Andrew, he said he shed a tear. My friend Andrew is not emotional that way at all. So when he said he had half a tear coming out of his eyes, that was a big deal. So we come to Final Fantasy 16 now, and you'd think somebody would be calling me up, or I'd be getting messages, "Hey, oh my God, are you losing your mind?" And as I said in the episode, nobody's losing their mind, but we're all going to buy it.
Oh yeah, it's my most anticipated game this year. It's number one for me, for sure.
Right.
I would say Final Fantasy 16 is number one. The Breath of the Wild sequel. What is it? Tears of the Kingdom is number 2.
Tears of the Kingdom, yeah.
But Final Fantasy is still my favorite thing, and I'll play it right away, and we'll see how it is. But what I was gonna say is, who has that anticipation these days is From Software. So when people think of the anticipation and the fervor and the obsession with like screenshots and leaks that come out from the next From Software game, that's what it was. That's what we're talking about. It was like for Final Fantasy back in the day.
It's just really strange how this has happened. You think everybody would be losing their mind right now. A Final Fantasy 16 game is coming out. Isn't it funny, though, Kevin, to go back to the past? Because I know you said you finished the first one again. Like, to go back all those years, like for me, it was 1990, 91, where I played Final Fantasy 1. Little did I know I'd be 49 years old waiting for Final Fantasy 16. It's kind of eerie. It reminds me of Back to the Future when he goes into the future and he sees that there's like Jaws, like 6 or 7 or 10 or something like that. I forget what it was. And you thought how outrageous that was, where if you had told me, "John, one day you're going to be playing Final Fantasy 16, I'd be like, "Oh, get out of here. That's just so stupid. That's never going to happen. That's way too far. You'll be way too old for that." And here we are. It's nuts. Yeah.
And I do think that they, at one point, because Final Fantasy 8 was a mixed bag for people coming off of 7. 8 was like a kind of a weird game. And then they decided with 9 to go back to the roots with sort of the fantasy setting. They stripped down a lot of the complexity of the junction system and all that. And people love that game. That's a lot of people's favorite Final Fantasy game of all time. You would think that they would do that again, sort of. Maybe they are with 16. I don't know.
Well, I think what's happened is when they did the return to Final Fantasy 9, going back to crystals and all that kinds of stuff and black mages. I mean, that game is magical. I think the reason why that game works too is kind of like a Disney game. Do you know what I mean? It's like they're super deformed characters, and it's really charming, and there's a lot of humor in there, and it's something you can just. I don't care who you are. I think everybody can find something in that game. Where I don't know what it is now. I feel that everything has to be super serious. So, like Final Fantasy 16. I haven't watched anything where some characters are being lighthearted. It's like death and destruction. Oh my God, the kingdom's coming to an end. Like, it's all this kinds of craziness and then combat and all this, which I've got no problem with. But I don't think they'll ever do obviously an SD thing going back in time. Everybody's going to always look very serious. Like, look at Final Fantasy 15. Like, what a strange game. You're having all these guys in leather, costumes, driving around in a car in the desert with monsters running around. It's insanity. I remember doing it thinking, I like this. I think I like this. This is so weird. This is so gigantic in scope. And then, yeah, I think some of my falls, the falls to Final Fantasy 15 was how big it was, but you didn't really feel like you needed to go and explore. Not really.
It was like big and empty at the same time.
Yeah.
Right.
And all of that. So, yeah. So I think, anyways, what I was getting to there was that the serious tone of the characters and all of that. And yes, there's some humor in Final Fantasy 15, but I don't remember it. I just remember leather-clad men driving around in a car, sweating all day, fighting monsters randomly, getting out of cars and fighting monsters randomly, and then eating at a diner. It's like that. It's so surreal. It was like the weirdest game, and let me say something. I enjoyed the game, and I remember a lot of people being mad at me that I enjoyed the game. They're like, but this isn't Final Fantasy. This is, you can press a button and combat initiates. And I was like, you have points with all of that, but I still enjoyed the game for what it was. I got to the end, finished it, and I walked away. Am I ever going to play the game again? Probably not. But I don't have terrible memories. I don't, what a horrible experience I had. No, it was fun. It was snowing outside. I was playing the game. It was kind of comforting. It was nice. I try to make it into something. I can just say, I hate this game and I don't want to play it. And then who loses? I do. But I try to get something out of it.
Yeah. Me too. I played through all of that. And even 12, I went back and played the remastered version all the way through. That, you know what the secret was to getting through that game was the fast forward feature in the remastered, where you can hit kind of like that fast forward thing to go through the battles way quicker. Oh my gosh, what a life changer that was.
I'm trying to remember if Kim did that. I'm trying to think back. I mean, it's quite a few years ago that we did that now, but if that was in the game, she probably would have initiated it too. But I can't remember too much fast forwarding and stuff like that. I think Kim played it old school. I'm not quite sure and remembering back. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Final Fantasy, when you look at all of the games, I mean, it's been a heck of a ride. And here's the thing that you said, that Final Fantasy VII, you played the remake at first, you didn't know what to think about it. But then you went and finished the first Final Fantasy VII. Again, you obviously enjoyed that because it's a classic. And then you enjoyed the remake even more when you played that. I think the reason why the Final Fantasy remake works is because it's different. And it doesn't take away from the original game. If you want to play the original game, it's still there, right? So you can play the remake and go, this is just something different. And this is a different experience and a different way of viewing what I originally played. And it's so much more fleshed out. Almost to a weird thing. I think the original Final Fantasy VII leaves some things to imagination that really cooked in our minds back then and made it more than even what it was. In looking back now, you're like, wasn't that novel, some of it? But it's a classic without a doubt. I mean, sometimes I wonder, I'm going to bring something up with you because I know how much you love the game. Xenogears, a classic game for all time. But in going back and looking at it, you're like, it's a bit novel for a lot of people. Me and you will always love it, no matter what. And some of the religious aspects of it and how big in scope it is, and all that. Is it just because we played it at the time and it means so much to us? Like, I wonder if new people are going and playing Xenogears going, oh yeah, I get it. I wonder that sometimes. Is it just does?
No, because, to be honest, I haven't heard of anybody who missed out on it when it came out and then going back and be like, yes, this holds up and certainly it's worth the hype. But what you said about how Final Fantasy VII left things to the imagination, I think that was one of the things with Xenogears that I thought was so incredible. Like,
that's kind of what I was linking to.
You can think about that game for the rest of your life and not have half of it figured out. Like, there's so much going on in that game. You have the perfect works book. It's like 5,000 years worth of story before the game even starts. It's the most ridiculous story of any game, I think.
I think what I enjoyed the most about Xenogears is obviously the music and everything that it is, but it was inspiring how big in scope it was. It was like they were inspired by Star Wars, but said, no, Star Wars, hold my drink. We're going to go full on. And and this is like back in the day before Star Wars kept going on. I think it was for me being an artist back then and do my own comics. I would look at that, and me and my friend Satan at the time, his name is Aaron, but we call him Satan. That was his nickname with all of us, type of thing. We would just sit and draw and come up with our own stories that were huge in scope. And like that, they were all epics. And it was inspired by Xenogears being such an epic. And I think, when I pick up the Perfect Works book, I'm like, this is ridiculous. And it's amazing how in-depth they got and how much they cared. Even though I was saying the other day, I wonder with people telling stories nowadays, Are they just regurgitating stories from 20 years ago they saw on TV? Or are they telling like rich history, like Tolkien-esque things like they were doing with Xenogears, which is a Tolkien-inspired idea in how rich it is. And I hope new writers really start to explore brand new concepts and really give us new things like that going in the future, rather than saying, "Oh, I took an episode of Star Trek I saw 20 years ago and regurgitated it for now," which we talked about before.
Yeah, it does happen. Yeah,
it does happen, and I hope people are inspired by philosophy and stuff that happened in civilization in the past, and kind of build on that and technology now and create brand new things. I was talking to a friend yesterday about Frank Herbert and Dune. And so supposedly Frank Herbert was just walking by his house. He saw a sand pile, a sand pit being worked on or something. And he's like, and he saw Dune. And he went and created that, which created Star Wars, which inspired everybody and all of that. And I hope that there's writers like that, because I'm not one of them. By the way, I'm not one of them. I aspire to be that, but I'm not. But I hope young writers really look into themselves and find some really great stuff and get really original and all of that. And anyways, yeah, like I think I'm saying that because Xenogears is so inspirational. I want to see more inspirational work like that from younger writers in the future. I mean, I'm not the person to do that, but I really would like to see the worlds that they could create. It'd be very interesting.
I don't know what you've been sipping, but you've got it all wrong. It's time to commit to the Leaf. We've embraced the smoothness and surprising pick-me-up that tea provides. I literally drink it all day long, nearly a gallon a day, and it powers me through research, script writing, and forums on websites that I refuse to name here. But we don't drink normie NPC tea. We drink cultured and refined anime tea from the Dragon's Treasure. Kevin still likes the gunpowder green called Space Cowboy, and I've sampled nearly 40 Dragon's Treasure teas at this point. Lately I've been slamming black teas like Kentucky Bourbon and liquefied Berserk Despair. Scottish Breakfast is deep and peaty, and I smooth it over with Sebastian's Morning Earl Grey, which has the best vanilla cream taste I think I've ever had in a cup. Give me a pot of that with a hot meatball sub from Sal's Pizza and Brooks Barbecue Chicken to wash down my last meal on death row. I highly recommend the sampler packs. You'll want to try everything just like I did. I literally have not had one tea that I wouldn't be happy to reorder. The Dragon's Wings membership fuels new tea experimentation, and the Tea of the Month Club provides a regularly scheduled surprise. And when you order from the Dragon's Treasure using code CREATE, you'll get 10% off your order. That's 10% off using the code CREATE at thedragonstreasure.com. The link's in the description.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing that I had been thinking about lately, okay, so I have been replaying a lot of these sort of PS1 remasters. I recently played through Chrono Cross again for the first time since it came out, whatever, 20 years ago, whatever it was. More than that? I don't know. When did Chrono Cross come out?
Oh, it was like 2000, 2001. I think 2000. Okay. Yeah.
And I loved it. And I know that some people were complaining about the AI up-resing of the backgrounds, and it made it like kind of weird looking. That didn't bother me. I was like, you know what? I'm happy. I'm happy that I can play this game in 2023 on my, nice TV. I can fast forward through the battles. Like I want more of that treatment. And one thing, this is what I thought of that I wanted to throw at you, because for some reason, every single like modern retro RPG is pulling from the SNES. They're all SNES era, like Sea of Stars or
right.
The Octopath games are really like SNES.
They're inspired by that era, 16 to 32-bit era. Yeah.
And here's the big confession. I'm not into it. I'm not into that. I would love to see like PS1, PS2 era remastered, of course, not like blocky messes. But
of course.
Why can't they make like who's going to make those games? There are none of those games. There are none.
Okay, I'm fully with you. Now, give me an example of a game that you would love to see get this remastering remake treatment.
Well, a game that already exists that I'd love to see remastered would obviously be Xenogears, but I'm talking about like indie developers making new, or not even indie. How about like Tokyo RPG Factory or whatever? Instead of making SNES inspired stuff,
right?
Make PS1 or maybe even PS2. Like the Final Fantasy X remaster looks awesome.
It does.
Is it too expensive? I guess that's my question.
That's what I was thinking. I think a lot of people go for the pixel artwork, not because it's cheaper, but I think there's a lot of work that goes in there. Look at Sea of Stars. It looks insane. I mean, it's crazy.
It's amazing. I'm not knocking it. I'm not knocking it.
No. And I understand. You're like, sometimes I have that feeling, hey, I've been there, done that in my era, and we're doing it again and again and again and again. I think if they're done really, really well, it's fine. And I think there's definitely an audience for that. I think there's a lot of younger people that like them as well. But I think it's the expense, man. I mean, doing some big scopy games, I think pixel work is sometimes the way to go to save a buck or two. But I'm not taking away anything from the development. I mean, like Sea of Stars and all that. I mean, Octopath Traveler, like that, the amount of work that's gone into creating that. But hey, that gets to it. You said, "Oh, I'm not into Octopath." You're like, you're not into that right now. It's interesting that.
No. Oh, and another one was Chained Echoes, which I haven't played, but that's
the one. Thank you.
Like SNES style, But it's like are like the PS1. You know what I would like to play? Like a new game that looks like Legend of Dragoon. Like that would be dope with pre-rendered backgrounds. Like I have such a love and affinity
for that stupid game. Oh, I'm showing Kevin this right now. I have it sitting right next to me. I have an episode I want to do about it, but I've never gotten around to it. Hopefully one day I'll get to it.
The visual aesthetic and vibe of those PS1 pre-rendered backgrounds, I love so. I love so much more than the NES style. It's just a preference.
Yeah. You know what I want? This is going to sound crazy. Like if I could dream and just like, I'm not dream too big, but dream just enough. What I would love is a video game with a tiny bit of combat, but not all about combat. Combat is just something. It's like 10% of the game, even 20%, where it's a pure exploration style of game. Like I enjoy exploring in these games. I love going around, and I do love getting in combat. I'm just saying if I could do something different and have an offshoot game of something like where I could play a game like Tunic without the puzzles. Because I must admit something. I really can't stand puzzles in some of these games, man. I find them, I've done them so much in hundreds of games that they've worn out their welcome to me. And I found that it's one of those things that just stops the game dead in its track. I'm like, okay, what's the puzzle here? Okay, I got to figure out a number. Is it somewhere in a room back there? I don't really find the enjoyment in that too much. Like I know, but I don't. I don't mind mentioning that at all. Hey, listen, if I get into a game and I have to do it, I'll do it. But if I could prefer not to, I prefer not to. Even I was just playing the Final Fantasy IV remake. I finished it. I'm going to talk about it in the future on my show. But I get to a room and I'm like, oh God, I need a numerical code. I'm like, I don't know what this is. And I'm like, looking up online, what is it? I don't have time. Open it. I'm so much more satisfied. I open it up. Cool. I get the item. I don't want to be fapping around with that. I just want to get into the combat, have a bit of fun, explore a bit and stuff like that. I don't mind taking a couple of shortcuts like that once in a while. Because back in the day, I played like Landstalker on the Sega Genesis. It's kind of like a Zelda game. I remember before the internet and stuff, me and my friend Andrew would be stuck in a puzzle for a week. And there was nobody to talk to. There was I remember calling his mother in. Like we'd be over at his house and we'd be stuck in this puzzle. And we said, hey, like Andrew's mom, hey, like we can't figure this out. Do you have any ideas? I said, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? None of that worked. And then we finally figured it out like days later. And it wasn't one of those things where like, yes. It was more like, yeah, okay, fine. I can finally continue on. It was not, I had no pleasure in it. You know what? You know what? My friend Rob loves puzzles. He loves them. He lives for them. He just eats it up for breakfast, where I'm not quite that way. I like RPGs with very little puzzles as well.
I was going to say that this is where you and I differ, because like, for instance, for me, Resident Evil 8 fell off for me the second half of the game. The first half of the game, I loved. It was so creepy, and you're just kind of like snooping around and you're solving the puzzles, and the first two areas, the mansion with Lady, the giant.
I call her Lady D. It just makes it so much easier. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's the Lady D area, and then there's like that horrific baby dungeon or whatever. Dollhouse or whatever. Yeah. Man, I love those two. And then the second half is combat. It's like not sneaking around. It's not solving puzzles. It's just fighting. And I played through it. I was like, this was great. But there was a stark sort of bifurcation to me where I was like, I absolutely adored the first half of Resident Evil 8. And the second half, I kind of slogged through just to finish it.
I'll say this much. Resident Evil does make the puzzles fun. Like, I'm talking about some of the bigger puzzles, it's so easy. As long as you went to that area, you will know how to get through the next puzzle. Do you know what? Resident Evil 8, I enjoyed all of it. Have you played the remake of 4?
Just the demo. I haven't bought it. I've played that game so many times, though. I played the demo and I was like, yeah, it's Resident Evil 4 again. I've beaten that game several times.
What's interesting for me, and I'm going to talk about my video, is that I had originally played it on the GameCube, and I'd never played it since then. I loaded up a save one time, ran around to capture some footage for an episode I did like a couple of years ago on Resident Evil Ranked or whatever it was, but I had not played through it all the way. Dude, it was so fascinating for me to play this remake. I remembered the game in my mind completely different at certain times. Completely different. It was, I gotta say, I enjoyed the remake way more than I enjoyed the GameCube version, which is saying something because I love that. But it was so nostalgic and I don't know, like making me remember things that I completely forgotten that made me feel really weird. Like, whoa, I can't believe I forgot this. Or, oh, I remember the entire end of the game. I remembered completely different. Like, I won't even get into it here for spoilers, but I remembered the ending of the game running up the mountain, and it was just wave after wave of cultists. And I barely got up there. This is my memory, and it's not like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's very different in the remake, and I was like, oh, I remember it completely different, and all that. So yeah, you gotta play it though. It's so good. Like I was genuinely upset when the credits rolled, and I was like, that experience is over. I really enjoyed Resident Evil 4 Remake in a way that I haven't enjoyed a game in a long time. And especially
it's one of the best games of all time, like without question.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. My friend Rob, he completely disagrees. He thinks it's a terrible game. He doesn't like how we went from. Yeah, I know. I never agree with him on this. I mean, we've argued about it. And I agree with him that I enjoyed Raccoon City, and then all of a sudden going to a European setting, it was in Spain. It's very. I liked the jump. I enjoyed the change. Where he did not like the change. He just thought, oh, they're not zombies the way they were. He was so into the original stuff that he couldn't let it go. And he never enjoyed the game. Where I definitely enjoyed the GameCube game. That was well, can you remember that? That was one of the most biggest hype games ever. We're talking about hype games. Final Fantasy 16 is not hugely hyped. Where the GameCube Resident Evil 4 was huge.
It was huge. Yeah, it was one of the reasons I had a GameCube. I mean, I had a GameCube for Resident Evil 4, Metroid Prime, which is another game that they just remastered. But speaking of Metroid, here was another thought that I had recently that I don't know if this makes any sense to anybody else, and this may be just like a weird Kevin thing. But I thought of something. First, it came to me because of Metroid. So Super Metroid is by far my favorite Metroid game. By far. It's not even close. It is so much better to me than any other Metroid game. It's just in its own stratosphere to me. And I was trying to really drill down into my own head as to why that is. And I'm like, because I didn't want to just say, it's pure nostalgia. Like, it's because I played it when I was, however years old, 12 years old. And that's the one that'll stick with me forever. Like, I don't think it's just that. That seems, well, okay, hold on to your thought. And then let me get my thought out first. Because then I also thought about Dark Souls. And I was like, okay, why is Dark Souls 1 the one that everyone agrees is the best one? And I made this weird connection in my head where between Super Metroid and Dark Souls 1, a thing that I think that they have in common that maybe why I and perhaps other people love those two games in particular so much is because they're they're small enough that you can really hold the whole world in your head. Like, I can think about starting at Firelink Shrine and, do I go up the hill? Do I go down the hill? Do I go left? Do I go, through the skeletons and the catacombs or whatever? And then the paths that follow from there. I can replay that in my head, exactly the path for everything in Dark Souls 1. And I could do that with Super Metroid. Super Metroid is another game that's small enough that I remember replaying it over and over and over again, because the more I replayed it, the more I remembered exactly where to go, when, and how fast could I do it? Like, how fast could I get through Super Metroid? And these other ones, these other sequels that have come along, they're too big to do that. You can't really, or at least I can't really hold the whole thing in my head, how everything's interconnected, and I can't think about it later, really. It's just kind of like a blur. Does that make any sense to anybody else at all? That's my question.
No, actually, what you're bringing up, though, is personal experience. And if you go to a speedrunner and say, how can you get through Metroid Prime? How can you wrap your head around all of it? They're like, because I played it when I was young and I connected to it. And the world to me is small because I enjoy the world so much. And it's interesting for me, getting to Super Metroid, and we're going to agree on something or not agree on something. Did you ever play the original Metroid?
Yeah. Oh, I grew up with it.
So you enjoyed it? You understood it?
Oh, I love the original Metroid too. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so my experience going to Super Metroid was I didn't understand the original Metroid. I was like, I don't get it. Like, I didn't understand the original Zelda. These were brand new concepts back then. The exploration and going to a place, I need another item to come back. That was new. People
there was the player's guide, though. There was like some kind of Nintendo player's guide or Nintendo
that had all the maps.
Had the maps, and I used that when I was a kid to play Metroid.
Yeah, and so I kind of brushed off the original Metroid. I'm like, there's something interesting here, but I don't quite get it. And then Super Metroid came out, and I didn't buy it day one. And I went over to my friend Andrew's place. I was 20 years old, and like many times back then, I'd sat on his couch. He's playing Super Metroid, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, this is so much better looking than the original game. And because he was kind of guiding me through the game, he was kind of explaining how the game played, and I was like, and I've had it a couple of times where I've seen a friend play a game and I'm like, I gotta go. He's like, where are you going? I gotta go buy the game. And I left and I went and bought the game, went home. And like you, I had this religious experience with that game. It was the music. And I'm going to speak only for myself on this. It's the time in my life that I remember as well. I really remember where I was at when I was 20 at that time. And I remember playing that game, and I had just gone through a bad breakup, and that music is so eerie. It always, still to this day, 29 years later, will remind me of that breakup I had back then. And it's an eerie time, but that game was so magical and dark and all that. And yeah, but I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, was it just because I think it's personal experience for us all where we were at that time. Why did you enjoy Super Metroid more than Metroid Prime? Why did you enjoy it more than Metroid Dread? These are things you can debate with yourself. I think it just came out at the right time for where you were at that time. And the game is good, Kevin. That's also it. The game is a great game. It's not about nostalgia. The game stands up to this day. People can play the game now and still go, this is really good stuff and all of that. I think it's personal preference. Can you believe there's a lot of people that are just jumping in with Metroid Dread for the first time? God, that game's hard. That game's so difficult.
I didn't like it. I didn't like Metroid Dread. I actually don't even think I beat it. I think I got to the final boss and I was like, I don't care. I don't care. I'm not going to do it. There were so many things about that game that were annoying to me. The stupid rooms with the robots chasing you. I was like, this is not fun. I don't like this.
It was frustrating. Hey, how I did it was I invited Rob over, who loves those games, and he is such a good action platformer player. He'll get destroyed 1,000 times, but he keeps going, and he won't give up. And he gets angry at the bosses. It's like, I will defeat you. And so I just sat there on the couch, like I did years ago with Andrew. I just watched Rob play it, and I'd already played all the beginning of it. When Rob came over, I was like, I think we were 1/3 through, but I let him do all the difficult stuff, and I was like, oh my God, Rob, this is crazy. I remember we started playing at 11 in in the morning. We'd finish the game at 7 at night. And it was just like, oh God. It's like that game was hard. Like when I think of Metroid Dread, I just think of like the dread of playing it because it was so hard.
Well, that's the thing. I couldn't imagine replaying it, and I'm sure that this is just my opinion. There are other people who probably have replayed the game 12 times and they absolutely love it. But to me, I'm like, I don't want to do that again. I didn't even really like it the first time. It just kind of wasn't for me. But Rob is like amazing at 2D side scrollers. He plays all the Mega Man games. I can't beat a single one of those.
Yeah, no, I've even said I made a video, an episode called "Games I Suck At," and I even said that. Oh my God, I'm no good at Mega Man games. I finished the second and Mega Man X, and those games pushed me to my Mega Man limits. Everything else is like, no, I'm not doing any anymore. Where Rob, if there's something like that going on, I'll bring Rob over and he can do it, and I enjoy it vicariously through him. And I do enjoy the games vicariously through him. He used to come over with the latest Mega Man game back in the day, and I just watch him play it, and I'd have a good time watching him play it. But I was like, "There's no way I'm doing that." That's not for me. But also at the same time, he wasn't into RPGs, and he kind of got me a little bit more into action-y style games where I'm more into RPGs. He's a big RPG guy now. Yeah, he still doesn't play as much as I do, but he does enjoy them and all that. So yeah.
We want to help you make something and mean something. And we say that phrase all the time because when you're making something and you know it means something, even if it's just to you, that's when you feel pretty good about what you're creating. The support for the Create Unknown in recent weeks has been incredible. Animators, artists, musicians, YouTubers, aspiring filmmakers, comedians, it is crazy how talented everybody in this community is. Consider joining the Create Unknown Patreon. Every dollar that comes through goes straight into the podcast and its community. That means more highlights videos. It means a big Minecraft project that's on the way. And eventually we'd like to manufacture custom piss bottles so you never have to leave your battle station. And being a patron unlocks participation in all of our live recordings. You've seen the roster of guests we've had. Having access to their minds is a unique opportunity. You can go to patreon.com/thecreateunknown or click the link that's in the description. Every little bit helps, and your support means absolutely everything to us. Patreon.com/thecreateunknown, links in the description. We appreciate you, Space Cowboys.
Well, I have two other big topics I wanted to throw at you. One is something I really want your feedback on as the happy console gamer, because something has happened, I noticed, to me, which I think might just be me getting older, and it's this. The collector's editions of games. Man, I used to be so into that. I used to buy every single collector's edition, no matter like kind of what, even some games where I'm like, I'm not even super into this game, but this collector's edition looks dope. It has this art book. It has this thing. It's got these pins. I don't know, whatever. And after years and years of doing that and having these boxes just stack up, I'm like, I got to stop doing this. I got to sell these things. Like, I got to stop buying them. I got to like offload these. Like, this has gotten insane. I've had a major swing in my life in the past couple of years between something that I was super into, like very, very into, and now something I look at and I'm like, I'm not into that at all, man. Like I can't keep doing this. I can't have another like figure on a shelf.
Well, you know what the answer is. It's saturation. Every single game has a special edition now. I remember back in the day buying Lunar on the PlayStation 1 by Working Designs and getting a special edition of that game. It was a big deal because you didn't get them too often, so you really appreciated them. But somewhere along the lines, every company is like, I'm releasing a special edition, where even I, Kevin, I don't buy special editions like I used to. I will buy a lot of first-party Nintendo special editions, like for Fire Emblem or for Xenoblade. I love that stuff. I do. I'm a sucker for that. I can't get away from that, but not like I used to. I see a lot. Like I see the Final Fantasy 16 special edition, and I don't even bat an eyelash at it. Don't even care.
Dude, it's like $400.
And there's also that. I mean, Kevin, I got to ask you, isn't this crazy? Me and you grew up in a time where we loved video games and all that in the 90s. If I went to my parents and said, Mommy and Daddy, I love Final Fantasy 16. Can you get me the special edition? Oh, yes, little Johnny, we'll get you that. How much is it? How is it, $1.50 or a solid 20? And it's like, no, it's $400 fucking dollars. They'd be like, what? they'd be beating me and putting me in prison and giving me water and lettuce for a week after that request. Like, what is going on with that? I mean, I've done a couple in my life where I asked my parents for some outlandish things for Christmas, and they pulled it off. But it was only like 2 Christmases, and I still remember them to this day. You know, like getting the TurboGrafx for Christmas or the Sega Genesis. Those are the big deals for me. I mean, but now, I mean, like a special edition is more than a PlayStation 5. It's kind of nuts.
It's crazy, but I don't even think that the kids are the target audience at all. I don't think that they're even worried about that.
No, they're not.
The target audience is us.
Well, I will say something. I think it's rotten for kids because we've all been young. We've all been young and been mega fans and aspire to want something, and it's so out of the realm of possibility that it just makes you sad. And I'm really saying that. I think there's a lot of kids out there that are like, oh, I'd really love to have that, and I can't afford that, and it's impossible. Why do they do this to me? Why are they dangling the carrot in front of me? And even we are like, yeah, we don't need the carrot anymore. We don't need a $500 special edition for Final Fantasy 16. We haven't even played the game.
Exactly. The biggest bullet I ever dodged when it comes to this sort of thing was not buying that Cyberpunk special edition, which was also, I don't know, $200 or something like that.
I canceled mine, dude. As soon as all of this stuff started happening, I canceled my order. I was, I'm done. Yeah, I got out of that. Yeah, you made me forget about. I forgot about that. Yeah, Jesus.
And my biggest special edition regret is Ni no Kuni 2, which I don't know how much I paid for that friggin' thing, but it's massive. It comes with like 1 billion items.
I know.
And now it's worthless. It's worthless. I have it up on eBay right now and nobody wants the thing.
Can I say something? You know, so we're talking about that, but you know what, Kim? Oh God, it was probably like 6 days ago. She goes, do you know that game I really miss? And this came out of nowhere. She's just like, we're making dinner or something. And I said, what? She's like, Ni no Kuni. I'm like, oh, really? She's like, yeah, I really like that game. It's so interesting how things cook in Kim's brain. She's not worried about special editions. She's just worried about the game. She just likes that aspect.
The first one or the second one?
The second one. She really liked the second game.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, we finished it. I mean, yeah, we got through that game. I mean, some people, yeah.
I checked out at those stupid skirmish battles. I was like, this is so lame. I hate this. I'm not playing this anymore.
So yeah, me and you are older guys, and we've done it all. We've done it all in video games. Where Kim quite literally hasn't done it all. So she is like the younger versions of us in that she's not overly saturated. So Kim really enjoyed the skirmishes, and she got really good at it all. And she really enjoyed the story. I mean, it's kind of extraordinary that even though the music was so repetitious, that's the one thing about that game that really kind of bugged me. The music, I remember grating on me near the end. When it comes to the end, I'm like, oh God, if I have to hear this again, I'm going to lose my mind. Even though the music's beautiful, they should have had more tracks for it. But anyways, yeah. But special editions, I'm with you. But Nintendo always gets me like Fire Emblem Engage. I'm just like, I can't look at the artwork in the box. I love the characters. And especially when I went and played the game and I finished it, I love that game. Oh God. And then I look up at my special edition and I'm like, yeah, that means something. I really like that. I connect with that. But you can't connect with everything like that. The Resident Evil 4 remake, I love more than life itself. I think it's great, but I don't need this special edition of it. I got the mega special edition of 2 and 3. That's super nostalgic from my early days. 4 is so nostalgic, but I can let it pass. Can't get everything.
No, and so much of what drives this, because this is another thing I just thought of that I just don't understand is, so a lot of what drives up these special editions costs are these figures, these figurines, statuettes, right. I don't know what you want to call them, but the little figurines, right? Those things are so expensive that I cannot understand. So if anybody listening to this is a collector of figurines, here's my question. How do you afford that? All of these figures, like you look online and these figures from like First 4 and like Prime 1 or whatever, it'll be like this amazing Guts Berserk figure that's absolutely beautiful and gigantic. And it's like $1,200. I'm like, who is buying that?
Well, yeah, I'll tell you who's buying it. Not me or you, but people know, like what people know. We can't figure this out. Let me tell you something. There's this secret world out there this is kind of interesting. There's a secret world of people that are multi-millionaires that have so much expendable money, and that is not me or you. So we are not even in these circles at times where, okay, great example. I met some of these people. I've met them in my life. Whereas at a retro gaming convention, a local one in town, not a big one, and I was looking at some RPGs and on the NES, and some guy was standing there, and we ended up talking, and he's like, oh yeah, like we're talking about back and forth. He's like, yeah, he goes, I only need one more, one more game. It's an RPG. I forget what it was. I need a sealed. He had every single sealed NES game, but mints. Wow. He had them all, and he had a complete Super Nintendo mints box collection. And he's like, oh yeah, I have it all in a special room, and I, blah blah blah. I don't. There's many collectors that don't even show the collections. Me and you, we do. Hey, look at my games room. Isn't this novel? Where there's guys who have real collections that are in some back basement rooms in a mansion that nobody will ever see. Mm-hmm. And I happened to hear about this guy's collection. He kind of let it slip, everything he had, and they were all. Oh, by the way, sorry, Kevin. They were all sealed. I hope I mentioned that. Sealed NES games.
Oh, wow.
That's what made that special. Sorry, I knew I was forgetting something maybe when I explained that. And I was like, what? So he's like, yeah, I'm still looking for this one particular game that I have a complete. And I was like, that's not normal. That's unheard of.
That's crazy.
I have one. I got Metroid 1 sealed on the NES. That's my gold thing for me. But that's it. I mean, I don't have any collections of things like that. I just collect the games I like in box, and some of them are tattered, but they're mine. But some people are sticklers. And he even had he told me the sealed Super Nintendo games. He's like, this is their thing. They go and they be. But he was doing this even before the days of now and all of that. And yeah, a different kind of collector and a different kind of money. And so yes, those are the guys with the guts figures and all that kind of stuff, reserve figures, and they're out there and they're buying, and they're buying big, and the rest of us scratch our heads and like, oh, I don't understand all of this. And then you go to the basement, you're like, oh, I get it. Yeah.
And you would need much room for them, dude. Have you ever seen how big some of these are? Like there was a God of War Ragnarok figure. I mean, you call it a figure, but it was like 3 feet tall, and I mean, it needs its own table just to display the thing. I'm like, I need an insane amount of space for these things.
Well, I sometimes look around some of my rooms, and I'm like, oh my god, I have you have these big boxes for special editions. If I remove that, I could fit my entire Switch collection in there or something. And you're like, do I really need that big box taking up all that space and all that? Actually, so the one I'm thinking about, Steel Battalion. I have it up here.
Oh, yeah.
It's behind me for anybody listening. It's behind me, and I look at that and I'm like, I love having it. It means so much, but I'm like, do I really particularly need that? I'm like, well, I don't want to get rid of that because that's irreplaceable. That's just a really wild thing from the past. I love mechs and all that. I'm not the one thing I'm not a hoarder collector. I don't just buy everything. Oh, that stuff everywhere. Everything means something, and I keep everything that when I go and look at my shelves, it means something. And do you have this, Kevin? Where I hear a lot of people, they go into their collections, they look at things and they don't feel anything. I walk in, dude, and I look at my Neo Geo games or my PC Engine games, and I get whelmed up, and I get so excited. Because I love that stuff. And do you feel that too?
Oh, absolutely. Well, with some stuff, and lately, quite honestly, I've been going through it, and I've been selling stuff. I've been selling stuff that I'm like, you know what? I don't even really like this game, and I could get $100 for it, so I'm just going to sell it, and I don't even care. I won't miss it. But what you're talking about, my reaction to them would be like, well, then why do you have it? Because this is stuff you should be getting some sort of joy out of the collection.
Satisfaction.
Otherwise, or it's like a financial investment and you plan on flipping it at some point. Like that makes sense too. But to be in a in between no man's land of well, it doesn't mean anything to me and it's not worth anything. It's like, well, that seems kind of joyless and sad.
I know. Do you know? Here's something that I've thought about, and I just thought about it. But I thought maybe when I get into my 60s, I'll start selling off a lot of my excess stuff. And maybe that'd be something I do as an old man in my 60s. Oh, I get rid of it. I'm not that old. Your 60s is not that old. But maybe the reason why I don't want my collection to be a burden to Kim and my daughter in the future. And the only reason why I bring this up, and I've got to trust me, I've got like a very small room with all my stuff in it, and I got still lots of room and all that. But I know a guy, and I'm not going to mention his name. There was a big collector in Canada, and he had one of the biggest video game collections in Canada. And unfortunately, he had a heart attack and passed away. I think it was a heart attack. And his wife was left with this huge collection. And everybody in the video game community in Canada was trying to help her out. I didn't personally know her or him or anything like that. And they were trying to figure out what to do with it all. And it became this burden of stuff that meant something to one man that his wife appreciated, he enjoyed, but all of a sudden he had passed away and she had all this stuff and didn't know what to do with it. And I don't want that to be a thing. And I want still to for my collection to one day go to people who will enjoy it and all that. I don't want to sell it to a mass collector guy or something. I want it to go to the right people and people who appreciate the stuff and all that. So maybe that's something I might do in my 60s. I'm 49. It's another 11 years. Can you believe it's 11 years away from that? That's insane. We 60 in 11 years? That's just terrifies me. It's like so weird and all that. But that's probably what I'll do with some of the X's. I'll always keep the stuff that means something and gifts from friends and stuff. Never sell that stuff. That'll always be passed on to my daughter.
Well, this is the whole like Marie Kondo thing. I don't know if you know who she is, but she was a kind of a famous organizer. That was her whole shtick. She had a TV show about it, about how to organize your life and how to declutter your closet and all of that sort of thing. But her entire philosophy on sorting through stuff when people have too much stuff is, does this bring you joy? That was it. Like, pick the thing up, look at it. Does it bring you joy? Okay, put it to the side. Pick the next thing up. Does that bring you joy? No? Okay, then we'll just get rid of that. And so there are two things that I consider when it comes to collecting. One is what you're talking about. Does it bring you joy? Just looking at it. There are old RPGs. I could just look at the box art.
Oh, yeah.
It just lifts my mood. I'm like, yes, this game was sweet. Like Legend of Dragoon. There you go.
I'm showing him.
It brings back a flood of memories, and you're like, this is sweet. I love this thing. And then the other thing, the other part is, do I plan on playing this game in the future? Like, if I haven't gotten to it yet, you know what? I have never played Grandia 3. I've never played Grandia 3.
It's not as good as 1 and 2, but
that's why I haven't played it. Because I've heard mixed things about it, so it's never been at the top of my radar. But Grandia 3 is a game where at some point I feel like I'm going to pop that in and I'm going to check it out. So I'm not going to sell that.
Pop that and play some of that. I mean, I wonder what your thoughts on that is. Like, the older that I get from Grandia 3, the more I it's about Grandia 1 and 2. So 3 was a thing they made, and it's another thing. It doesn't feel it doesn't have the same love and caring, I think, that 1 and 2 had. There's something special about that. Anyways,
yeah. But those are the two categories. And if the game doesn't fit into either of those categories, either it makes me happy just looking at it, or I do consider myself, playing it someday, then why bother?
Yeah, I can honestly say, like, I walk into my games room and every single thing in the games room makes me happy. Like, I can genuinely say that. And when people come over, they always, this is your collection. Like, I had my cousin come over and he's never been over here. And he said, oh my God, this game. And I actually said that, like, I don't just say on the show, I was saying to him as a family member, I said, if you point at any single game on my shelf, I can tell you something about it. I can tell you a memory of what it means to me. I could do that instantly with any of this stuff behind me, or any of the games over to the side. Not everything is obviously behind me. It all means something. And it's kind of funny, isn't it, Kevin, that video games don't define me as a person, but they have been such a part of my life that it is intertwined in a lot of who I am and my culture and how I like Kim even says to me, she's like, you're like a gaming, not like the gaming historian, not like Norm, the gaming historian. But she goes, you're like a gaming historian that you remember things like a photographic memory of dates to things by when they came out. And it's like, it's a useless ability for everything else in life. But if you have a video game show, it works pretty okay. It's totally useless information for anybody else. It's kind of funny, but it served me well for the show. And to be honest with you, Kevin, I look back in some of the earlier things I did on the show, memories that I did in say 15 years ago on the show. And I'm really happy that I did them because some of them have faded a little bit. Isn't that interesting? Some of them like, oh, I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that I recorded it in an episode, even if it wasn't a very good episode, the germ is still there. And I would tell everybody to have a video game, not a video game show, but a YouTube show and record their memories and thoughts and just to do it in general, even for their future family members. It's a really cool thing to do.
It is. It doesn't have to be about video games. Like I actually find that same thing really, really fun with joke writing. So, I've been writing like very stupid jokes for such a long time that something will come up that I wrote like 12 years ago that I completely forgot that will make me laugh hysterically because it made me laugh then. Like that's why I wrote it, because I thought it was funny then. Then fast forward 12 years later, I completely forgot this joke, and it's like hearing it for the first time, and I laugh all over again, which is kind of strange, a strange, phenomenon.
I got to tell you something I've never said this on YouTube, and I've never said it anywhere. And the very first show that I was originally going to do on YouTube was going to be called The Jarheads. And it was so that stood for John, Aaron, and Rob, Aaron being our friend Satan, because we would come up with the weirdest humor and the stupidest crap you've ever heard in your entire life. And we wanted to do skits. We wanted to do a skit show. And we had, our humor was so ridiculous. It still is to this day when we get together. And we never got to doing that. And I went into the video game aspects, but that was a big thing that we were talked about and was almost a thing. And I say that because I'm somebody that doesn't look at myself as being a joke writer like you are. You've had so much, you did with Jerry Bloop and the humor and back in the day and all that stuff. I've never aspired to be that person, but just because of my friends, we almost went that route, which would have been a very Jerry Bloop style of this is insanity. And we never did that, which in a way, I'm kind of glad we didn't, but in a way, it would have been very interesting to explore. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you're probably much more likely to much higher probability that you would be canceled by this point for jokes that you were going to make in 2009. You dodged a bullet there, probably.
No. It was like, like our humor was just so stupid. Like I remember we had this one thing as like, but it's for a movie. You know how like they'll shut half a city down because it's for a movie. It's a really big deal type of thing. And then so it's like, I'm making this up. So I'm trying to take jokes that are not edgy right now. And we would come up with things like, somebody would show up and say, hey, can we drain all of your blood and remove your heart? You're like, what are you talking about? I'll be dead if I do that. You're like, but it's for a movie. You're like, oh, you didn't say so. If it's for a movie, well, of course then. And those are the skits and all of that. And like really, really ridiculously dumb things like that, where I must admit humor now has really been squandered. And let me say, I understand where people are coming from. I mean, a lot of the humor back in the day was like over the top and things like that. But at the same time, I mean, some of the good humor is really kind of gone. I mean, you can't just have a funny laugh. And I'm not talking about laughing at people's expenses or anything like that. I mean, I think things have gotten so neutered now that people have to explain why they're telling the joke. And but it's nothing to do with me. I'm just explaining the joke. They have to put themselves so far away from the joke that they can't really tell a joke. They're putting themselves away from it rather than owning the joke. Listen, it's not my forte. I don't go out and I'm not a comedy guy or do anything. I'm just like watching from the sidelines.
No, but we had the Kino Corner on the podcast last week, and he actually brought this up as it relates directly to comedy movies. How comedy movies just kind of don't. I mean, they exist, but nobody cares. No. It's just kind of a dead genre for a lot of reasons. But your skit idea. I wanted to mention this really quick for people listening to look this up, because this was a really funny SNL skit in the 90s called Subway Guitarist with Rob Schneider. I'm pretty sure this is the skit. Pretty sure. My memory says it was Adam Sandler, but I looked it up, and I think it's Rob Schneider. But the gist of it is this guy is, he's like a busker. He's just kind of like playing an acoustic guitar, with his guitar case open for people to throw money in, on the subway, or in a subway station. But the joke is that he's like making fun of people as they walk by in the song. And then when they get mad at him, he's like, whoa, it's just a song, dude. Like, I'm just singing a song, but these are just the lyrics. Like, don't get mad. Like, don't beat me up. It's like, I'm just singing a song. That was the whole thing. It's really, really funny. All right, John, I have one more topic that I can't let you go before we discuss, and that is the Switch. So before you hopped on, I did a little back of the envelope research and math on console generation gaps for Nintendo. And we are now in the longest Nintendo console gap in their history, I think. Someone's going to say there was some other one, but I don't think so. I mean, between NES to SNES, SNES to 64, 64 to GameCube, GameCube to Wii, Wii to Wii U, Wii U.
So I'm with you. So you're talking about the
Switch to Switch 2? Question mark? It's been 6 years, and as far as I know, there's nothing on the horizon still, which I think all of us old school gamers expected this trend to continue, in which Nintendo would announce a new console alongside the new Zelda and release it, half on the old console and half on the new one. That did not happen. So
that didn't happen.
What are your thoughts on this Switch? The Switch that won't go away.
The Switch that won't go away, and it's still pumping out really cool games, and it's still, and I think that's why it's still there, is because it's amazing. It's got such a collection. I mean, how many games have you got on the Switch? You know what I mean? It's ridiculous how many you can add up on and all of that. But it's interesting because I'm like you. I can't believe I got it wrong, because I would have bet my life on it, Kevin, that they're going to release Breath of the Wild 2, Tears of the Kingdom, and there'd be a new Switch model, or Switch Pro, or Switch 2, whatever they would call it. Who knows? I would have bet anything on it. And that has not happened. And I do not know. I'll be honest with you. I'm not one of these YouTubers that will make a 15-minute video talking about, oh my God, well, it's supposed to happen or not. That's such a waste of time. But I really don't know. That's the best answer. I don't understand what the heck is going on. And there's no Metroid Prime still? That's still in the ether? I mean, is that coming out at Christmas time? I don't know. It's strange to have Breath of the Wild 2 coming out on the Switch. And there's a little bit of me that I even said in my video, I'm like, it looks a lot more like Breath of the Wild, which isn't a bad thing, but it's like, okay, we're not getting that next generation super jump there too. It's like, okay, all right, Nintendo, what do you got planned? Like, are they just going to announce all the stuff's going to come out by, oh guys, yeah, we got another Switch coming out with Mario, because there's no mention of Mario anywhere. So
no,
is that the launch title? Is that going to be a launch title? Is that going to be? There's got to be something. And when are they going to announce this? Are they going to announce it? It's going to be after Breath of the Wild. They're all in Breath of the Wild 2. And then after that, the dust settles on that after a month or two, they'll have another Nintendo Direct, and they'll give us Metroid Prime 4. It has to. Yeah, how many years has it been? 4 years?
Well, they said to start over from scratch at some point. I remember, they said that, but it's still even from when they started over from scratch, it's been several years. But what I was going to say is there's no way they're launching the Switch 2 with Prime 4 as sort of the killer app. That's not happening. It has to be a Mario game, especially riding off the success of the movie, which has been wildly successful. It's got to be a Mario game. But that's the question mark. It's like there's no mention, and has never been a mention of whatever this new Mario game is, and they're just completely silent on this new Switch. And the Switch was underpowered when it first came out, which makes sense because it's a hybrid system. But when it first came out, it was underpowered, and now we're 6 years later and still chugging along. I'm like, well, all right,
yeah. It's the machine that just keeps on going and won't give up. And I still, when I look at the Switch, I always love it. I love the portability, but I also wonder, like, what's Nintendo going to do? are they going to release another portable? They'd have to. They would have to. But it's so weird when all these Steam Decks have come out and all these other technologies come out since then. It's like, oh, is this? You have to create something. It has to be their first party titles that will really sell it and all of that. And will it be a big success? Well, I think it'll be a big success. I mean, but it has to really build on the Switch. It has to be better. And it has to really be a big jump. But are they going to do that? They never do. And I'm not saying that to not. I love Nintendo more than anybody, but they never release exactly what you need at the time. You know, I remember back in the day buying a Wii and like Twilight Princess and having to hook it up to AV cables.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like it was ridiculous. It's like, really?
Well, the GameCube was a huge leap. The GameCube blew kind of everything out of the water. That system ruled. I love the GameCube, but it didn't sell all that well. And then they smashed it with the Wii, and they did amazing. And they sold a jillion Wiis.
Yeah, and then the Wii U was a massive disappointment.
That flopped. Even though I love the Wii U, huge Wii U truther. I'm a huge Wii U truther.
Me too. I am too, but I think the console looks stupid. I don't think it looks very good. No. And I think the pad controller, absolutely stupid. But without it, we wouldn't have the Switch. But I really wish we got the Switch instead of the Wii U and launched all there. You know, that's something, I'm going off topic here. We really need the Xenoblade Chronicles X. That's what we need.
Oh, yeah.
We need that ported. We need a port of that into the Switch. Why is that not out? I don't know.
That's weird. That game is amazing, though. I loved Xenoblade X, even though
did you finish that game?
No story. I did finish it. Yeah, I loved it. So one of the no one talks about this game, so I'm going to use this opportunity to talk about Xenoblade X. One of the coolest moments I've ever had playing video games was in Xenoblade X, where you finally get a mech. You finally get a mech. You have to play that damn game for like 30 hours or something before you finally get a mech. But once you do, and you can fly around that huge open world, holy crap, dude. That was such a cool, talk about having to be there at the time. But when I was there at the time, this was such a cool moment in gaming.
And the music that played, isn't it the singing and all of that? It's like crazy. Yeah, I mean, that's one that it's on the radar to really go and finish. I got a bunch of hours into that, and I just kind of was like, oh, this is so much to this game. I'm like, I made a video about it, like one of those games I've got to finish. And me and Kim, if it's port to the Switch, I'm setting Kim on it. We're gonna do it. We're going to do that.
She's going to love it. I think that game will be right up her alley for sure.
Oh my God.
She'll dump 100 hours into that, no doubt.
She's on a hiatus. She's doing a lot of reading right now and all that. She said to me, oh, is there any games that they're cool that are out? And I was like, well, there's Persona 3, kind of the remaster. She said, oh, Persona 3, I'll do that. She didn't like it at all. She's like, oh, this is like this. I got to go up the tower every night. It's like, yeah, it's the same thing over and over, John.
It is,
and it was for me back in the day too. Yeah, I mean, anybody who liked that game, that's really great. I like a lot of the concepts, shooting yourself in the head. That was kind of insane, type of thing and all that. But it was fascinating stuff. But I enjoyed it back in the PS2 days. But I don't think it holds up incredibly well. The whole thing. I mean, it's we're really getting on an RPG thing. How many years has it been since Persona 5? It's got to be, where's Persona 6?
That's a great question. I have no idea. I mean, they're definitely milking Persona 5 for all it's worth, and I don't know why there's no hint at all of. I mean, on that same note, I mean, the other game that's taking absolutely forever is the next Elder Scrolls game. I mean, talk about milking a game. They've been milking Skyrim for 12 years.
And it's weird we get Starfield before we get a next Skyrim, type of thing, a next Elder Scrolls game. It's really weird. Starfield. I mean, I haven't talked about that in the video. I really don't know what to think about that. I don't know.
No,
I'm not hyped.
You know that I heard a rumor that they're remastering a game that I will buy day one if this is true. Skies of Arcadia.
Now, this has been rumored on and off for so long. Hey, I personally made entire pushes to Sega. I got my entire Skies of Arcadia collection. I got it all in one place, took a photo of it. and tweeted at Sega and was like, when are we going to get a remaster of this game? And there's about a year or so ago, there's rumors of it, and still rumors of it. We definitely need it, but they need to, I don't know, they need to get that combat a little bit. I hope they kind of change it a little bit, make it a little bit more fun. It is very, very, it's a bit of a slog now. Let's just be honest. I mean, I love the game, but it's a bit of a slog now for modern audiences. And that means, you're going to actually change it. And I don't know. That Dude, remake remaster better.
Just give me the fast forward button. I'm happy. Just give me the fast forward button.
That will solve it.
That's all I need.
You're right.
That's all I need.
Yeah.
Or just lower the encounter rate a little bit. That's something I've noticed.
Well, they did in the GameCube. They did in the GameCube version.
Yeah, I never played the Legends GameCube version, but it's something that I noticed in the Final Fantasy X remaster. The last couple of dungeons, holy crap, the encounter rate is like every 3 steps.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god. And there's no fast forward in that remaster.
Of course not.
No, but it's a fast battle system, though.
I've often thought about recommending Final Fantasy X for Kim to play and all of that. That would actually bridge a whole bunch of games for her if she got that one. But I almost like, am I sentencing her to doing something that's going to be really troubling to her and annoying, or is she going to like it? I don't know. I mean, it's weird. It's a weird game.
Yeah, it is weird. So, it's super linear. The battle system is really like you just have to attack this type of enemy with this person and this type of enemy with this person. It is really strange.
Call in and out, back and forth. Yeah.
And then I've noticed when it comes to some of the boss battles, the strategy sort of goes out the window, and you just kind of have to blast them with the overdrive of the Aeons. Or at least that's what I've been having to do.
Yeah,
which is weird.
It's been some time for me with all combat. It's weird with that game. I'll be honest. When I finished that game, and while I was playing it, when it originally came out on PS2 during that Christmas time, I remember being not as happy with a lot of it. I wasn't happy with the world map, the lack of. I wasn't happy with the lack of exploration. And I thought this is what I was talking about with my episode where gaming starting to scare me and all of that. But when I look back now, years later, I'm like, that's a classic. It is. And oh man, the nostalgia with that though. Oh my God. Don't you remember where you were at? The Dreamcast was out at that time, the GameCube. I mean, it's crazy that moment in time. And we had that game. And oh God, when you listen to that music now, oh jeez, it's crazy. Crazy.
Yeah. It's beautiful. All right. Well, let me just get you out on this. I just want your thoughts on when Nintendo does come out with another one. Is it, because they always get creative with their consoles. They always come up with some sort of gimmick for it. But the Switch is so successful, and
I don't know.
It's like, how many gimmicks are left? Is it just is the Switch it? Is it just going to be another Switch that's more powerful? What are your thoughts on that?
I'm terrified of them gambling and doing something outlandish like virtual reality or controllers that you put on your head, or or you have to wear an elastic suit to play this machine. I get nervous, Kevin. I don't want them to go into their gambly phase where
Nintendo nipple clamps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's like it comes with one of those things where you're like getting linked to do jump rope, and you're doing that with your castles or whatever. Oh my God! And you know what? All the reviews come up from IGN. 10 out of 10, a masterpiece. I've never used my body to be one with Link before. Oh God! I really hope that they're innovative, but not so much so that it's odd and weird, like the Wii U gamepad was for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. I mean, I didn't mind it, but it wasn't great. And the N64 controller, which by the way, I thought was so cool and all that, but it was weird for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It was really weird. Like I don't know, man. I'll be honest with you. I don't know. I couldn't even make a video guesstimating what Nintendo's going to do next, because the whole industry is showing us what needs to happen. And the only thing that me and you could think about, or maybe everybody listening to this, maybe there's a lot of people listening are a lot smarter than me and you, and have already figured it out what they're going to do. But we kind of figured that they're going to do a Switch 2, a Switch Pro, something building on that. They can't call, hey, what are they going to call it? The Switch U? Could you imagine the disaster that would be? Like, what are they going to do is the greatest question that we're all going to find out within the next year. And it's scary. It's kind of exciting. And something that I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of people probably listen to this going, guys, it's going to be this. And we're like, we don't even, they've already figured it out. I don't know. Is it going to be, I hope it's not virtual reality though. I hope it's not. I don't think so, but I hope, I like virtual reality. I really do. I got the PS5, VR2 and I really like it. I have a lot of fun with it, but I don't think it's for Nintendo. It's not Nintendo's they shouldn't go that direction and all that. So I don't know what they're going to do. What do you have any ideas?
I mean, my idea is boring. I think that they will just stick with this hybrid thing, maybe make the screen nicer, the controller different, how it clicks in or whatever. I don't really know.
Yeah. The attachable nipple bits, yeah, sure.
That's what tassels. I think. Yeah, the nipple tassels, Nintendo nipple tassels. So you can play Mario. Every time you swing, he jumps.
Yeah, and it's funny. We're also living in a time where, and you were there, where we were going from the Super Nintendo to the Nintendo 64, and you're like, oh my God, that jump in graphic fidelity, you'd never seen anything like it. Where now, it's like you get your PS5, and you get your Dark Souls or remake, and you're like, well, that looks damn good, but it doesn't floor you. You think it looks amazing, but it doesn't flaw you. So, so you're not going to have the same. We're never going to have those moments again, Kevin. Well, and I think we know that.
What's weird is that the Demon Souls remake still looks kind of better than a lot of other PS5 games, and that was like a launch title. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I mean, geez, hey, come on, Final Fantasy remake was very, very nice.
It was. Yeah, but the Demon Souls remake was made only for the PS5. That's the thing that I think is holding back a lot of these games. Although I think that Final Fantasy 16 was only made. I don't think that's coming out for PS4. Am I wrong about that?
I don't believe so. But I'd really like to see how they pull that off.
Mm-hmm.
They really we have to. Yeah, eventually we just have to let that go and move a bit forward.
That's what I'm saying.
Let the bird fly free a little bit. And move forward for sure. So, but you know what? They have so much of an installed user base with the PS4 and Switch. I mean, hey, listen, let's get something right here. Anything that they do with the Switch going forward, any a new machine that's coming out, it's got to be backwards compatible with the Switch, or they'd be out of their minds.
Yes.
So there has to be some backwards compatibility. So
I agree.
Yeah, who knows, man? It's gonna be interesting. I think we all really like Nintendo and we're rooting for them, but we're also can be scared by their crazy innovation and nipple clamps.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I just hope that we hear something this year. That's kind of my
There's got to be something.
Dream. Something, guys. What are you cooking up? Well, there's kind of nothing left after Zelda comes out for them to cook up as far as getting.
No, there isn't. Advanced Wars will be out.
Yeah.
That's it. So they got it. I think they got it. That's their plan. Let's push this, and then we'll announce new hardware and go forward. And maybe Metroid Prime might just be straight to that new system. Listen to me. My last thing, Metroid Prime 4. I am not saying anything. The Switch I like and all of that. In fact, I love it. But I feel we've hit the ceiling with graphics.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what they could do with a Prime on there. That just the Prime that we just played, the remaster, very nice. And it's like, okay, well, what more could you do than this? That would be such a mind blow. I guess they don't need to do anything more than that. I would hope they would. So I don't know. That's the mystery of Metroid Prime 4. We've never seen it. We don't know what they're going to do. Yeah, so it's a mystery box, that one.
It's becoming a little notorious, I think. They're going to have to.
Oh, I think the hype is building. That's why I'm talking about it. Okay, what's it going to be? This better be something after all of this time.
Yeah. Well, listen, man. I look forward to when that comes out because I know that you'll have a reaction to it, and I'll watch it immediately. I love your channel. Like I said, every time you come on, it's one of the few that I watch every upload of. So thank you so much for doing what you do. And it's a part of our lives. So thanks, John.
It is. Thank you, man, for having me on for the third time. I mean, we always have so much fun reminiscing and talking about modern games and games we're playing and games you love and games I hate that you love and vice versa. So I just want to thank you and your audience for having me on.
Yep. Awesome. All right. Well, this is an annual tradition. I hope everybody enjoyed us nerding out a little bit. Matt will be back next week. Thanks to our patrons for hanging out with us this week. And if you want to become a patron, just go to patreon.com/thecreateunknown. We are a Patreon supported podcast. So everyone who supports the podcast through Patreon is helping every episode get made. So thank you very much. We'll be back on Tuesday. Thanks again, John. We'll see you, Space Cowboys.
Thanks for listening to The Create Unknown. We make this show with the support of our patrons. 100% of that goes directly to keeping episodes going every week, and the recent support has been amazing. Sidpoke, NRM, Venture Addicts, Weezergood, you all really do make this show happen. Thank you to the Tots and Dumpster crew, old and new, who save tiny little lives every month. Thank you to our grizzled, battle-hardened child infantry. Clemente de los Santos, Dan the Latch, Demetrius Andrews, Erica, Farrakhan, Jen Mefasanti, Kevin Menard, Mikhail Steinke, Monahim, Natsu, Penny Peddler, Risebread, Ryan Kinder, Samuel Manser, Sean S., Sean Malone, and Tom Videoger. And a tremendous shout out to our elite baby gang commanders: Atrocious Scuff, Kat, Dojangles, Graham Robertson, James Gallagher, Jeff Davis, Orange Vanilla Coke, Patrick Pister, TCU's personal pilot, Andy, Ryan Carroll, Baseweight, Vinthos, Yeetus Deletus, Jonas Walter, Nathan Robinson, Jelxies, and of course, Trevstead. You are the elite. Thank you as well to our indentured servants, producer-editor Ben Webster, Minecraft mogul Laterman, Discord kitten wrangler Conrad, and producer emeritus Dan Yoshua. Thanks to Baseweight for use of Created in the Unknown for the opening theme. Thanks to Electro Voice for giving us mics to sound good on top of it. And a special thanks to Main Gear for powering all of our PC endeavors. The Create Unknown is an Unknown Media production in partnership with Studio 71.